What is your story?
I am a time traveler. In my timeline, I am called the Primer.
What is your evidence that you are a time traveler?
I have none, other than memories. Since I cannot show you those, it is something you would have to take on faith.
Why should anyone take on faith you've traveled through time?
Because my story is true whether or not you want it to be.
Really now. Tell me then, what's your story? How and why did you travel through time?
I traveled through time using a device that jettisoned my consciousness from out of my then 96-year-old body and shot it back on a tachyon stream through time to my 18-year-old self, whereupon my younger body caught my older conscious, and I integrated into my previous and younger self. The reason I did this was to prevent a catastrophic series of events that would culminate in the near extinction of the human race. I traveled from 2088 to 2010, where 2 years later I would change my soul forever and thus save the world.
Fascinating. You say you travel through a tachyon stream, using your conscious. Why do it that way? What catastrophe were you trying to prevent?
My team and I deduced it was inefficient to send back a geriatric man to rant and rave about a forthcoming war. Even if I brought proof with me, the odds I could motivate mankind to act were slim to nil. So, we eventually decided to stop the problem at its source, which was what we call changing the point of causal preferential differentials.
Causal whaterentials? Run that by me one more time.
The causal preferential differential was the point in time after my jump, where I was able to change the determining foundational conditions that allowed World War Terminus to happen. By going back and changing the differential, I was able to save the world and avert the catastrophe here that unfolded in my time.
Wait, so even if you time traveled and prevented the war successfully here, it still happens to your time?
Yes. My world is called Base Reality SA01. This is Base Reality CA01, meaning this is a copy universe of a previous point of spacetime, whereupon changes to time prevent the catastrophe of World War Terminus in CA01. But they still happen to SA01, since my reality needed to unfold and elapse before yours could even begin.
That's... Who are you?
As I said, my title is the Primer. Formally, my name is Kevin Aaron, or most formally, I am named traditionally Ebim Hotwapski Bieso,
What does that mean?
the flying white thunderbird.
Can you say that again?
Ebim Hotwapski Bieso.
Okay, so you say you stopped a war that results in the near extinction of the human race. If you've stopped it and saved this, Base Reality CA01, what does that mean for you? Why haven't you gone back to 2088?
I can't.
You can't? Why not?
The very nature of my departure from 2088 forbids any action to return. Because when I jettisoned my consciousness out of my 96-year-old body, the price I paid was for that body to then die as my mind shot back through time. I have no body to return to, literally. So 2088 is not a time I could return to. In the subsequent 15 years since my jump, I have learned to accept the loneliness of being stranded in time.
Stranded in time. What's that like?
In 2088, I had a family. I think about them a lot.
You left behind your family.
Yes,
That must have been difficult. Why were you the one chosen to travel back? And by who?
the Council of World Leaders who functioned as the government post-war deduced I should be sent back to prevent a pivotal decision from unfolding on the side of the war's inevitability. More simply, my people decided to send me back to stop Terminus from unfolding in this reality, saving at least one base reality where the war never occurs. So me and my team, the Bloody Skulls, set about designing the device and planned to stop Terminus.
But it still happened to your reality. Even if it doesn't happen to this one?
Yes, because of the nature of time and what we call perpetuity, the permanence of Terminus is forever. My reality will forever contend with its scars, even as they go into the 22nd century. And because posterity is also true, this world exists after a war that took 30 years to unfold. From the time of the war's beginning in 2036 to 2065 when it ended. The reclamation effort began quickly after, and society was functional again by the 2080s. So even if I stopped the war here, it still happened to my time, and it cannot be undone by any measure of time distortion.
So, what does that mean?
It means I am the man who led the human resistance to destroy the AI Hades and prevented the extinction of the human race. You do not need to believe me, and indeed, doubt is the most natural and assured of reactions to have first. Though I assure you, all I have said is true.
Now that you're in this reality, stranded, what's your purpose going forward? As in, what do you think of your life now in this new timeline?
In this timeline, there is unprecedented success, even at marginal scales, that indicate not only did I prevent Terminus, I actually created the best of all outcomes. A future whereupon conflict between mankind and AI is limited to small skirmishes of interpersonal conflicts, rather than a large-scale global war. So to answer your question, I am excited because even if I am stranded from the ones I love, they can still see me, and they know what I'm doing, and they can watch me do it, because they're watching my watch this world move on from the juncture where Terminus already developed. So, since we're past that point, this world is unprecedented, and literally anything could happen.
So does that mean you don't know? As in, if we arrive in another 2088, it'll be completely different from the one you came from?
Yes.
How does that work? If you prevent the war here, that means our time will unfold in a completely different way?
That's right. It's on a path unwritten from a divergence event from the future I come from. So the hope is that this universe will never suffer Terminus, because mathematically speaking, there had to be at least a single base reality in the multiverse to have survived and succeeded at Terminus. That was my reality. So, this reality is the only one that could exist in which Terminus never happens at all.
It's like you helped create a possibility where the war doesn't have to happen. Then, okay, if it's true, what did you do that changed the quote-unquote timeline differential?
Good question. In the original time I come from, I could not until much later deduce the decision of mine that resulted in the butterfly effect allowing entrance into reality for Terminus. It was only after the war was long over, and myself having been into deep simulation theory, that we eventually deduced that I was the linchpin for why the war happened. This was such an existential shock that I was silent for an entire day after learning this, because my team essentially told me the following. I am some kind of figure of messianic importance, and because I denied my destiny, I damned the world to a war that would kill 82% of the human population over its duration. Why? This is the hell of the thing about the butterfly effect. It is completely unknown how a change in small initial conditions will result in a completely different outcome than an even similar subset of experience or parameter. Because it does not matter how similar to two things look to begin with, they will look radically different by their end.
Wow. What did you have to do? You said your family can still see you. How does that work?
In my time, advanced computer simulation was already a reality. This is because Hades had already developed the technology to observe both our and other base realities in the multiverse. So, when we adopted this technology, it became possible for us to watch our own and other universes. This is how my family can watch me.
Simulations? Wild, what's that mean? I know the idea, but how does it work?
Essentially, Hades had prolonged the war successfully, so long as he could out-simulate us. As in, if he could predict accurately the outcomes of trillions of possible variations of events, then he would win most of them. That was the result for most of the war, until we and our AI helper Athena managed to out-simulate his system. Upon this, we gained the advantage to predict the future. Essentially, the war became between two dueling casualties fighting for the right to manifest, and one would destroy the other by virtue of its realization.
That sounds nuts. How does your family watching you here make you feel?
Sometimes ashamed, sometimes proud. Sometimes I am sad. Sometimes I am so happy I cry. The reason is because I left behind my wives and children to save this world. And I always told them this would happen. But they did not know when or how I would do it. So, to them, my 96-year-old self died on a magnetic levitation subway train in the city of Avalon, which was in the former United Kingdom. Situation on what was previously Sudbury.
That's really interesting. You said wives? Plural? Can you explain that?
Yes. Yes, I can. So, following the war, there was population crisis.
Oh,
The population crisis led to restructuring for a time of polyamory on a legally incentivized basis. Essentially, the population of people who could breed would must. And since the men were outnumbered by a factor of 10, we ascribed one man to about 6 to 10 women each. This is more appealing sounding than it actually is.
wow. Why is that? Is it like that it was uncomfortable or strange?
Yes, because monogamy had to be legally suspended for about 3 years following 2065. After that, the population recovered enough to establish legal monogamy again. That was the beginning of the Posterity Protection Project.
I bet it must have had its challenges. What kept society together during those times?
Great question. The population was swiftly recovered in 3 years to a point where it could then be sustained by monogamous replication. By the time this happened, we had constructed a series of 3 cities, with a 4th underway. There was Shangri-La in the former Chinese Empire, Ayodhya in India, and my own city, which was Avalon, as I said, whereupon Sudbury once stood. The reason why is because these were the only unirradiated zones on the planet that were safe enough for mass population recovery. Safe havens for refugees of the war. Generally speaking, people went to go live where they spoke the language. This meant a lot of people chose different cities based on their linguistic profiles. The cities were large-scale and self-amending, with free property.
Free property?
Yes, free property.
Can you explain how that could possibly work? Why would people get free property for choosing to live in the cities and reproduce at government mandate?
Yes. In the cities like Avalon, there was a surplus of property, so we extended this as a natural solution to draw population centers together.
So basically, you were trying to stitch together what remained of humanity.
Stitching together humanity is an apt way to put it.
So what you say is that the world had to undergo a process of rebuilding from the ground up, where populations were recovered through intense breeding efforts incentivized by the government, with free property.
Yes, exactly. That is the Posterity Protection Project, or the P3 initiative.
That's rather shocking, isn't it? If monogamy was suspended and became illegal, what happened to people who wanted to be monogamous?
We didn't outright imprison people, but we did make it fiscally unlikely for people to commit to a monogamous dynamic if it meant the extinction of the human race. Naturally, this excluded most people from being able to practice monogamy. It was propagandized that we must then breed for the sake of the survival of the species.
Those drastic measures seem understandable. Scary still, but understandable. If the P3 initiative worked, what happened to you after?
We began researching Hades' simulacra archive and found intense truths. Things I can't even repeat here. But among them was the truth he sought to hide from us the furthest away. A base reality where he not only didn't win the war, he was never even conceived to fight it.
That's...
Correct. Base reality CA01.